the practicality of what plays out when a brand becomes a big brand or becomes a leader. Their profits are higher in a lot of cases. In order to continue to grow, they're pushing for more physical availability. They have more mental availability. It just becomes easier to maintain that leadership position.
Hello, and welcome to The Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Hingle. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Angela Voss, the CEO of Marketing Architects, and Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines.
Hello.
Hi.
We're back with our thoughts on some recent marketing news, always trying to root our opinions in data, research, and what drives business results. Today, our topic is the brand loyalty debate. Is it more beneficial to focus on retaining existing customers or acquiring new ones? What does the research say? We'll be diving into all of it on the show today, but let's start by defining brand loyalty. Brand loyalty is a customer's consistent preference for and repeated purchase of a brand. And it's a common concept you'll find when you're digging into marketing effectiveness. And the fact that this concept is so popular made it a little difficult to choose an article to feature, but I found one that will do the trick because it summarizes a lot of research and perspectives into one article. This is by Mary Kay from Kantar, and it's titled, "Is it still okay to talk about brand loyalty?" We had Mary on the show a little while ago to talk about the report that this data comes from, which is called Modern Marketing Dilemmas. But there was just so much to cover, we didn't get to this important part about brand loyalty. The article starts by telling us a little bit about the history of this debate. In the 80s and 90s, loyalty was a very popular concept, and some common sayings at the time, which I think we still hear quite often today, are things like, by retaining 5% or more of your customers, you can boost profits by 95%. Or, it's 5 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than it is to retain a current one. These statements are not true, and in the decades that followed, the pendulum swung the other direction. New belief systems took hold. Sarah Carter and Les Binet called loyalty an open marriage, explaining that very few people are loyal to one brand. And Mary Kay quotes Byron Sharp, who said this to brands during an interview on the WFA Better Marketing Pod. "Nope, loyalty hasn't disappeared, you've just got competitors now." And speaking of Byron Sharp and the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, they are famous for researching loyalty principles all the way back in 1969. And they popularized the idea that what drives growth isn't loyalty. I'm sure we've all heard this by now. Brands grow by acquiring new customers and not keeping old ones. Now, as I said before, the Kantar article pulls together several studies to get to their conclusion. Study 1 and 2 were conducted by Professor Jan Benedict Steinkamp. These studies found that customers who buy a lot, aka heavy buyers, and those who buy a little, or not at all, light or no buyers, are still important for a brand's sales. This research challenges the old 80-20 rule, showing that the top 20% of buyers actually account for about 50% of sales, not 80%. The buying patterns across different brands look like an upside-down hockey stick, where few people buy a lot and many buy a little. So if you're only focused on your heavy, loyal buyers, you are missing a lot of potential sales. And study 3 is from Kantar themselves. Researchers found that emotions play a big role in making people buy the same product again. A team from Kantar discovered that people who really liked a brand were twice as likely to buy its products again in the next 9 months compared to those who didn't feel as strongly. This shows that brands that can create a strong emotional connection with customers can encourage them to buy more often, which is a good way to grow the business. So maybe that says a little something about why loyalty matters. And finally, studies 4 and 5 show that the experiences customers have with the brand are important. They make them prefer and choose that brand again. Good experiences lead to positive memories, which makes customers more likely to buy again and maybe even pay more. On the other hand, when brands cut down on quality, customers notice and they might decide to spend less or stop buying from those brands. In short, a good brand experience is crucial for customer loyalty and choice. The article ends by saying that loyalty is more about being the customer's preferred choice. The old debate between focusing on new customers or keeping existing ones is not as important as making your brand the favorite choice for all potential buyers. Brands should work on creating positive associations and expectations with a wide range of customers. By doing so, they can increase the likelihood of customers choosing their brand repeatedly, which will also help the brand grow more effectively. Okay, so that's a lot of information, but we are a research-first podcast. I know I was like losing my breath there at the end. And this topic has a lot of research behind it. In fact, there's a lot more I could have covered, and different thought leaders present different evidence. Byron Sharp leans much more towards the new customer side of the debate, while people like Mark Ritson give more attention to loyal customers driving brand growth. So Let's talk about where we stand. Ange, we'll start with you. What side of this debate would you say you lean towards?
I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that we work in television, and often that is the next kind of go-to source for a company for growth. When you think about the law of buyer moderation posits that, to your point, while all brands have loyal customers, the majority of brand buyers are light and infrequent. And when we think about television, it's really a channel to maximize the ability to find those new customers. Coming out of digital, we've been like very focused, very tightly in a lot of cases. And so we've just seen compelling evidence about the ability to drive immense growth for a business by looking to new channels, looking to top a funnel, and to be focused on trying to do that versus just trying to drive loyalty. And when I think about my own buyer behavior, I feel a bit ashamed in saying this because I want to be loyal to the brands that I love, but my own buyer behavior, it resonates. I'm a bit of an early adopter. I like to try new things. If I get value from those brands, I might stick around, but it's pretty easy to sway me. I definitely lean a little more towards the sharp side of the argument.
It's funny, the hockey stick idea of most people are light buyers. I know that's true. When I really think about my own behavior, that's true. But for some reason, it's hard to, in your mind, to think about. Like when I think about a brand, I automatically start to drift towards, most of their buyers must be just people that are buying frequently and are very loyal. And yeah, that's just not the case. So Rob, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure this is an issue that I feel compelled to pick a side on. I'm kind of in the yes and camp. When you think about the brain, you've got the left side of the brain, you have the right side of the brain. They're different, they have different functions, but they serve really as a part of the same organ. And I kind of look at loyalty as the right side of the brain, that emotional side where we make decisions, and the left side being the more practical preference side of the brain. But I think they both hold value. And Lord knows I need all of my brain. So I'm going to go with, really a balance of both.
Does it ever hurt sitting on that fence?
Well, hey, am I normally a fence sitter? This one, I feel like there is genuine value in both. So,
Rob, that reminds me more of the Kantar article sort of concluded with, instead of getting really hung up on this loyalty debate, try to be the preferred choice. And that would apply to both brand new customers and recurring customers. So I think Kantar would probably maybe agree more with you. And I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. If I think back to that article, I think you're probably right.
Mm-hmm.
It does feel like there's a lot of semantics involved as we drill into some of these definitions, which I think does make me feel like it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm. One thing I was thinking about when Ange was responding is we did an episode with Matt Holtgren a couple weeks ago, and he talked about reach versus frequency and how your first frequency is generally drives the best sales response, which I would think would support more of Sharp's view that like you should go for reach, like hit as many people as you can because you are going to hit a lot of light buyers, and there are more people that are light buyers that are maybe going to buy right away than heavy. I don't know. That sort of reminded me of that.
I do feel like it's an issue that polarizing on either side is probably not good because we have had, not as much lately, but early in our days, we worked with brands that it was all a customer acquisition game. Like there was a leaky bucket. And I remember being like really frustrated as an agency where we're like, we got to take care of these customers once we get them in. Like, let's make sure that we're ordering again and again because we will run out of people eventually. So it's both, just like everything. It's so boring.
Yeah, Rob, what's that saying? Nothing kills, what is it? Nothing kills a bad product faster than great advertising.
Good advertising.
Right. When we're good at our jobs, we maybe don't have to look into the areas where it's a little stingy or we got a lot of work to do trying to retain customers and figure out what the right loyalty strategy looks like.
I think there's a classic line from, I believe it's David Ogilvy, who said, "Can great advertising sell a bad product?" And he said, yes, once.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, I think we could redo the quote to say, nothing kills a bad product faster than great TV advertising. Because, TV, I think, is the best marketing channel for figuring out, is there mass appeal for my product? Are people going to stick around? Well, I wanted to talk about, Rob mentioned that there's a lot of different, I don't know if you called it jargon, or there's a lot of different definitions to keep straight. Another one of those that came up a lot when I was researching loyalty was double jeopardy. So, Rob, do you want to give us a little Rob history lesson on marketing's double jeopardy rule?
In order to do that, we're going to have to rewind to the 1960s. A gentleman by the name of William McFee, or Willie as I affectionately call him, pioneered mass communications research. His seminal work, Formal Theories of Mass Behavior, back in 1963, which I know, Elena, you've read cover to cover several times, explored audience media engagement, laying a foundational understanding for marketing's consumer behavior analysis. Willie revealed that larger media outlets didn't just attract more viewers, these viewers also engaged more frequently, linking outsize media with audience loyalty. He introduced the concept of selective exposure, indicating people prefer media that aligns with their beliefs, leading to larger outlets capturing a concentrated audience. This insight was crucial for marketing, particularly regarding brand loyalty and market share. Willie also noted larger outlets benefited from network effects, enhancing the value of audiences' exposure. All right, well, now let's fast forward a bit to the 1980s, where Andrew Ehrenberg, or Andy, took Willie's insights into marketing, focusing on consumer behavior. He articulated the double jeopardy law, showing smaller brands struggle with not just attracting customers, but also retaining their loyalty. Andy's work demonstrated that consumer behavior towards brands mirrored their media engagement. Larger brands naturally drew more loyal customers. Andy expanded on Willie's principles, applying them to marketing to understand the dynamics of brand competition better. This bridged theory and practice, emphasizing strategies to boost market share and customer loyalty through innovative offerings and targeted campaigns. The collaboration of Willie and Andy's insights offered a nuanced perspective on navigating the competitive marketing landscape, underscoring the importance of both attracting and retaining customers. And that's the story of Willie and Andy and their brainchild they conceived together, Double Jeopardy.
I feel like that's a really long way of saying that big brands just get bigger. It's easy. Once you're a big brand, it's easier to be the leader.
Well,
but
okay, you can do the history update next time then.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and but you didn't have fun nicknames.
I know. I never do. I know. Snoop Rob is far more interesting to listen to than me. But if you just think about the practicality, I think, of what plays out when a brand becomes a big brand or becomes a leader, their profits are higher in a lot of cases. They've got, in order to continue to grow, they're pushing for more physical availability. They have more mental availability. It just becomes easier to maintain that leadership position. I know Apple's going to come up eventually. I'm happy to bring it up before Rob, but the entanglement strategy of loyalty, when you think about Apple, like, I really like Apple. Am I super loyal just from the perspective of, like, I love the brand the way Rob does? Not as much. There's a lot of value. It simplifies a lot in my life. I am totally entangled in the ecosystem of Apple. And the thought of ever switching out of that, it's a mind bender. Same thing with a bank. Oh my God, trying to like untangle from a bank and move over, like, you can do it, but it's a heavy lift. So there's a lot of ways, I think, to create loyalty. And I think Apple's done a really good job.
I think that's such a great point, Angela, because you bring up banking, and I did have an irrational disdain for my bank that I was using, and to the point where it was truly emotional, and I broke up with my bank. But it wasn't an easy switch. I practically should have gone to some sort of brand therapy to make the exit amenable, but I did it and it felt really good. So I think it's part of what you're saying. It's like, it's not an easy choice, but if you betray the trust of your customer, they will make a point to leave you.
Whenever I think about double jeopardy, I think it also applies beyond companies to, I guess, artists are sort of like their own companies. But when you think about the most famous musicians, usually the ones that seem like they have the most loyal cult following are also huge. Like, think about Taylor Swift, Beyonce. The rule, you can start to see that applying. So we've covered double jeopardy. I want to get practical for a moment. Let's answer this question. How should a brand that wants to grow think about balancing their investments in customer acquisition versus loyalty? And do we feel like their perspective should change according to their size, their category, or their customer?
I can jump in there and tackle at least some of it. Rob, feel free to jump in too. But I do think that this isn't a one size fits all. I think smaller brands should shift more focus towards customer loyalty when they start to achieve kind of that critical mass of customers, right? That allows for sustainable growth through repeat purchases and referrals and enhanced customer lifetime value. I don't think it's strictly defined by a specific number of customers or a specific market share percentage, but there's probably several indicators. I think if you think about the competitive dynamics, right? Once a brand has secured kind of a foothold on that customer base, then starting to focus more on loyalty can help defend against competitors looking to potentially poach their business. I think another thing would be looking at their customer base insights, making sure that you have a solid understanding of the foundation of your repeat customers and a deep understanding of their needs and their preferences and their behaviors. I think mindlessly, and I don't mean that in an offensive way, but just pushing a loyalty strategy out without really understanding what makes your customers loyal is probably not the best way, right, to go about it. And then I do think that from a brand recognition standpoint, once a brand has achieved a level of recognition and trust in the marketplace, making it a considered choice amongst repeat buyers, that might be a time as well to look to what does this right strategy look like?
I think we've felt this a little bit as an agency that I know it's a little bit different, but as you become more well known, like if more people know of you, if you're a bigger company, then new people also feel more comfortable working with you. So that's how I can see it happening in a B2B sense. Like we're an agency, but say you're selling HR software. The bigger you are, the more people know of you, the more comfortable someone's going to feel buying for you. So I think there's a lot of different things in play that help you improve loyalty once you've reached a certain size.
Totally agree.
So another thing that I came across when I was doing this research that surprised me more than coming across double jeopardy a lot were loyalty programs. And some shots were taken at loyalty programs in some of the stuff I was reading. So what do we think? Does this research mean that loyalty programs maybe aren't as important as they might seem?
I think it depends on where the business is and where they sit in terms of their market penetration. It's not a free move, right? The cost of an associated loyalty program can be high. And without a clear return on investment in terms of either increased revenue or that genuine loyalty, I think it's right to question whether or not it makes sense. There's a lot of research that loyalty programs might not significantly increase customer loyalty. So what is that true measurement of incrementality? And I think too, we've all experienced this. I don't even know how many brands I'm a loyalty member to. I think probably a lot more than I know about for sure. And they're all sort of the same. It's hard to differentiate one brand from another. I'm sure I've got competing brands in the same space that I'm a loyalty member to. So then it's just like, okay, what are we doing here? And I think when consumers are enrolled in multiple loyalty programs, effectiveness in creating that true loyalty is definitely diluted. I know just based on my own buyer behavior, there's no question that it's diluted.
I'll confess, I am completely bipolar on this topic. The world does not need another punch card in their wallet, right? I think there's definitely a poorly run loyalty program can actually frustrate customers. But on the flip side, a well-run one is absolutely amazing. And I mean, I cannot tell you how loyal I am to Delta Airlines because of those freaking points. I have no clue how much those points are actually worth. I don't care. I just want more of them. And so I really think there is a psychological benefit to a really well-run loyalty program. And I think the data would show that. I mean, there's a whole industry that's been built upon it, but I do think that there's absolute saturation in some areas where you really have to make sure you're delivering true value to your customer.
I think that's the biggest piece though, because going back to this is a good debate. Like, is it the points with Delta or is it the entire experience? We're out of Minneapolis, so Minneapolis is the hub for Delta, so we have a lot of flight options. We've got the Delta Skylab, which Rob spends way too much time in. There's free food in there. Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot that goes in on-time flights, a good experience while you're on the plane. So,
but it's still emotional though, right? Like the whole, it's elitist, oh, I got I'm one level higher now. Good for me. It's like they've gamified it. They've gamified the experience. It's the haves and the have-nots.
They keep adding levels now, too.
Completely emotional. They make it crazy hard to understand how you get more points, but you do it. I make stupid purchases on my credit card. Well, I'll pay the extra 3% because I'm running it through my credit card and not my bank because I get the points. It makes no sense, but I still love it. I still say thank you, Delta.
If Sun Country started putting crock pot weenies in the actual terminal, like you bail on Delta so fast.
Hey, Ant, we gotta charge for some of these marketing ideas.
Who does not like a good crock pot? I mean, you got me there.
But I think that's a great point about when I think about my favorite loyalty programs, it's stuff like Starbucks and Delta, and all the ones I can think of are big companies that have become big because they have a great customer experience. If I got a loyalty card to, even something like Caribou compared to Starbucks, I like Starbucks more. So I'm going to go to Starbucks more. So I think there is something there when I think about my favorite loyalty programs. They're big brands with a great customer experience. I was going to add one thing too. I've heard a lot about another value of a loyalty program is data. Like if you have that data with your customers, you have that one-to-one connection with them, then Starbucks can send a push notification when they notice that I'm in the airport by a Starbucks. They can say, hey, go buy this. And then as cookies deprecate, it's also, I think, it become more and more important to the value of data, first party data. So there's something there too that's maybe harder to quantify, but also seems important. Speaking of loyalty, one final question to close us out. If you had to switch loyalties from your favorite brand in a category to its biggest competitor, what would be the hardest brand for you to give up?
I know, Ange, you teased me about this, but I would actually cry if I had to use an Android phone. Like, not metaphorically. I would literally cry. I don't even know if I could make phone calls because my voice would be quivering so much. The tears that would go over the phone, I wouldn't be able to touch buttons on. I mean, I don't even know, are Android phones waterproof? Probably not. So there's my answer without saying the name of the company.
I had to reflect a lot on this just to think, like, what am I really loyal to in terms of the brand? Because I just feel so strongly that we're loyal to value. And if that value starts to fall apart, I'm not that loyal to a brand. The one that I'm on lately, and it's just because their product is so phenomenal, is On Cloud running shoes. I am absolutely in love with. I have multiple pairs, and until there's another brand, and I don't know how to say it. I don't know. I assume it's Hoka. I've heard good things, but I've been sort of like, no, I'm happy over here. But, if Nike, Adidas, all those really start tackling the cloud technology, which I think is taken by OnCloud, but that type of technology of shoe, like, it is a phenomenal walk, run, whatever you want to do in it. It's amazing.
Those shoes are becoming more and more popular with like professional triathletes. The Android one was so good. I wish I had chose that one. I think that one's stronger than mine, but mine that I thought of was Spotify versus Apple Music. If I had to move away from Spotify, that would be very painful for me. I have so much history with Spotify. I think their Wrapped is superior to Apple Music. I know, Rob, you're probably an Apple Music person.
That's such a good one because I'll confess I am in the Apple Music because they sucked me into the ecosystem. I'm not as passionate about my music, but the idea of having to go to another provider and then figure out how to work that into my ecosystem just seems hard. Yet the data shows it. Everyone says Spotify's a better experience. So, that's brand loyalty at work, I guess.
Well, I think this was a really fun episode. I was worried this topic would be too light for the podcast, but as I dug into it and as we talked about it, I feel like we could keep talking about loyalty versus acquisition, but maybe we'll wrap it up here. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Ayana Klaphocky for producing the show and Taylor De Los Reyes for editing. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you find the show valuable, please leave us a rating and review. And if you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to our weekly email newsletter. It's built for marketers seeking research-first analysis of the latest trends. You can go to marketingarchitects.com/newsletter to subscribe. Now go forth and build great marketing. I have nightmares. I actually did. I had a podcast nightmare that we lost the episode.
Well, we were inches from that last time.
I still don't know how we didn't lose that.
It's a dicey week.